Hello there and welcome back. My name is Elena.
And I'm Fotios, and this is the Game Court.
And today we are doing the Game of the Month.
The Game of the Month is a game that we played the last month, and we really enjoyed it. And we'd like to highlight it in this channel.
And this month is going to be Hegemony.
Hegemony lead your class to victory. Hegemony is designed by Vangelis Bagiartakis and Varnavas Timotheou, and is published by Hegemonic Project Games, which is a company that focuses on publishing games that have a lot of sense of reality, if you wish.
And an education aspect to them, isn't it?
Correct. They're trying to introduce you to, let's say, concepts of real life, but through basically board games.
So what Hegemony actually does is they try to simulate a contemporary nation by using very asymmetric powers, and they disguise them under the four classes, which are the state, the capitalists, the middle class and the working class, and every player gets one. They do have an autonomous mode that can take one of them, but it does play very well in four. And what you do is you try to please the population. Technically, you play with the health of the nation, the education of the nation as well. So there are different aspects in this game that do give you an insight of what economy and what politics actually do in real life.
And through the different classes, you also try to affect the policies by passing bills and stuff like that. For instance, some of the policies have to do with taxation, some of them have to do with labor market and what is the minimum wage, some of them have to do with foreign trade, and basically foreign trade is how much taxes you're going to have on import goods or export and stuff like that, and also the prices in import and export.
Immigration as well, that's one of the things that is quite interesting in the game, and the way it actually influences how many people come on the workforce and how many people you have to display and all of that. It's a very interesting concept that I've not seen before, and I think it's very well implemented, especially for somebody like me that has no idea about politics and has no idea how all these actually work.
Interact together.
They interact. Because the thing is, all classes are very different and they work very differently, and they do feed from each other, so one cannot do without the other. And they do say that every faction is the most powerful, so that one would win.
Yes. Indeed, there are 4 threads in the forum of BGG for this game, and the 4 threads, each one of them said that this faction is overpowered compared to other factions. So to have 4 of these different threads, one for each faction, that's actually quite impressive. It makes also sense with reality, because the working class, for instance, try to pass bills that are close to socialism, whereas the capitalist class try to pass bills that are close to neoliberalism, for instance, and you would get points end of the game compared to how many bills are, let's say, under your category, whereas the middle class is somewhere in the middle. Exactly.
Although the working class will have a lot of voting power, whereas, for example, the state will take all the taxes and punish you if you do something wrong, or give you cheaper healthcare or stuff like that. It's quite well implemented. It's quite cool.
So let's discuss about the classes. I'll start about with the state, which I think is possibly the most boring to play with, if I may say so.
I've not played with the state yet, so I cannot really say much about it.
I have played with state, and generally the state, what they have to do is provide benefits to the people, and provide benefits by also resolving some events, some, let's say, situations that need to be resolved, and by doing so they may give some benefits to one class or the other class or both classes, and by giving these benefits they also get points. But they also have some state-controlled companies, if you wish, which, let's say, is a public hospital or a public university or something like that, where you can employ working class or middle class employees, and they have to also pay wages, they produce stuff, and this stuff they are also willing to say afterwards. So, for instance, it can be the case that the healthcare is for free, and people get your health produce or your health services, if you wish, for free, or it could be the case that the healthcare costs and you buy the healthcare from the government for a cost. So this is an overview of the state.
Yes. The capitalists, on the other hand, do work quite differently, and I think it's projected fairly well. Where the capitalists, what they do is they have a lot of businesses.
Yes.
And I think the idea behind the capitalists is to produce, to build as many companies as possible.
Yes.
And you can tweak with the salaries if you need to. The more you have, the more you produce. The more you produce, the more you sell, which you can be on an internal market, or you can export
as well,
it
yes.
as well, which I think is very well reproduced, really.
Yeah. And you get in the capitalist, you get points basically by having capital.
Yeah.
So by moving your revenues to capital.
Yes.
This is how you basically accumulate points.
Pay a lot of taxes, but
yeah,
still.
you pay a lot of taxes, yes. Every class pays tax to the government, which is the state, basically. Now, the working class is the exact opposite of the capitalists. They don't own any companies at all, obviously, but they are employed by companies of the other three classes, middle class, capitalists, and the state. And basically what they try to do is to increase the prosperity of their people. And they do so by basically providing them healthcare, or education, or services like these technology services, the mobile phones they're depicted in the game.
Yeah, which is normally they're mass produced by the capitalists.
Yeah, and the prosperity increases over time, and this gives the majority of the points for the working class.
Yes.
And as the prosperity increases, you get even more and more points, but also every round the prosperity decreases one step in the working class. So you have to catch up a little bit there.
A nice mechanism in the working class is the power that you have by voting. So your vote counts a lot, and your deck is mainly produces a lot of votes.
Yeah.
So you can tweak the market a lot, and you do have powers like supercards that will let you vote more or add more of
Cubes
your
in the bag, yeah.
or your tokens into the bag, so you have more to say as a population. So I think that's cool. Whereas the middle class,
yes.
It's kind of a combination in between the working class and the capitalist. So I see why you put it that way.
Exactly.
Technically, it has a little bit of both. So it does the same. It has a same prosperity track.
You have employees as well.
You still have
People that you
employees.
need to,
Correct. So you still have. You're more like an artisan coffee shop kind of thing. So it's a little coffee shop, and you have some employees that you have to look after, but you're still part of the working class kind of thing. So you have the track of the prosperity, but you still have businesses, and you still have to pay for those businesses and stuff like that. You still get salaries, you still pay salaries and stuff like that. So it's you can pay salaries to the working class, but you as a middle class can work for the bigger companies, so they pay you salaries too. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the middle class, to own a company, you have to have the people to run it. Otherwise, you cannot really build a company. Whereas the capitalists, they can build a company even if it's not workers there to work for it.
Yeah. Some of them are all automatic, aren't they?
Yes, and the game's very thematic as well when it comes to the cards and the companies. So you will see fast food in the capitalists, or you will see a local restaurant in the middle class.
And like public health within the state, isn't it?
Yes, correct. Now, the game itself plays over 5 rounds, and basically every round starts with a working class, so working class, middle class, capitalist states, and goes like that. And you do 5 actions, I want to say, within a round.
Yes.
And your action always involves spending a card, and you can either do the action that is depicted on the card, or you can do one of the basic actions for your faction, and basically
by discarding the same card.
But discarding a card, yes. But you always have to play a card. And you have 7 cards in the beginning of the round, so you play 5 of them, so 2 carry on the next round.
Yeah, you have some extra actions that you can do if you want to, but you're not obliged to do.
Yeah, they're called free actions,
Yeah.
but don't think they should be called free actions, because you can only do 1 free action per round, before or after your main action. But basically your main action is either the card action or one of your basic actions that are particular to the faction.
Now, setup-wise, it's not the worst game to set up. It's a table hog. It's quite a big. Big
yes,
game.
Yes.
It's a big game, and because every faction is different, you do have to pay attention to. You have to know your faction to begin with, otherwise you won't be able to play it, because each and one of them has a completely different rulebook, I'd say.
Yes.
And you have a little glossary for yourself, like a little reminder for each faction.
Yeah.
So they all set up differently. So that it's quite time consuming, particularly for people that have never played, and some have. So you always have to pay attention to everybody else around you, especially when they set up.
Yeah, you have a small play rate for each class, but you have also a bigger, they call it, I think, rules reminder, which is a big 2-page back and forth, which is not necessarily to be treated as a play rate, but if you want to refresh your memory, if you haven't played the game for a while, that will do the trick. But as Elena said, you have to be on top of your class, because it's a game that if the players know their factions well, it's going to run smoothly and everybody's going to enjoy it, but equally it can drag. if it's the first time potentially you run the game or you play
It's
the
going
game,
to take hours.
it's going to take hours. Yes, yeah. So it is a complicated game to learn, but I think it's very good because everything makes sense in the game. Also, with regards to the theme, right? The theme makes sense. Everything makes sense in the game. So it's nothing is counterintuitive in a sense when it comes to gameplay.
It's just very easy to follow, isn't it?
Yes, correct. Even if the rulebook is thick, it's quite well written and everything. So I'm happy with it. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm happy.
Yeah.
What do you think about the art?
Well, when it comes to the art, I mean, the cover looks gorgeous.
Yes.
And it's very well depicted. I can understand it's about politics. I can understand it, I understand the concept behind it on the cover. Inside, however, it's pretty plain. There is not much of much. The cards have some art on them, which is nice, but it's all very minimalistic and it's all very dark. And it's quite simple, as in even the colors that they have chosen are quite simple, like literally the basic yellow, blue, red and green, and that's basically what you have. There's not much of a design there to pop up into your eye. I can see why they would. I mean, I think they probably could have put a bit more effort in the art, particularly in the main board. But the game is fairly simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's black, as Elena said. Iconography is clear, I would say.
Yes.
Very clear iconography. But yeah, it's quite simplistic, quite...
a bit too simplistic, maybe?
Yes. Minimalistic, maybe, is a correct word to say here. I don't know. Simplistic, minimalistic. But yeah, equally though, if the board is full of companies, it's better to focus on the important information of the board, I would say, and to pay attention to that than the art itself. So yeah, even if there is not really art in the game apart from the cards, I don't really mind that, to be honest with you.
Everybody has their own taste, isn't it?
Sure, absolutely.
What's wrong with a bit of art? I like a bit of art. I like the little details.
I know.
That's my thing. I really
know
like
you do.
it. But I mean, it won't change the gameplay. The gameplay is the same, but a bit of detail I think sometimes goes a long way. Now, if the theme is good, the art is not that good. The quality, I think it's quite good.
Oh, the quality is good, I think. And I think you get a lot of game there for the price of it. There are a lot of components, dual layer board.
Just think of all those rule books and all those glossaries. Just those ones. There are so many, and they're very nice quality to touch.
They're very nice quality, yes. And the player age.
Finish called like
linen finish, yes.
It feels very nice.
Yeah, a lot of money tokens, a lot of components generally. The meeples are nice, silk print both sides.
Both sides.
That we like. Everything looks nice. I mean, components quality wise, I'm very happy with it. Replayability, though, wise now, I think. How can I say? Basically, you start with the 4 factions. You have 4 functions. So in every game, you can explore a different faction to begin with. So even if you play twice with a faction, still that's 8 games. That's a lot of games with Hegemony. A lot of time investment.
A lot of hours, yes.
Yeah. But now, when we come to when we pass that, I think the game's a bit samey after a while, in the sense that you have your personalized deck of cards for your class, which is about I want to say 40 cards or something like that. And out of this, you see about 25, 27 cards in a game. So you
I think
basically
some of them are copies as well,
some
so you have
yes.
more of one.
Yeah, or similarly, or similar actions. Yeah, in the core class, you have 2 cooperative farms.
You have cooperative farms, and you might have like the immigration. If you have too many people, you have that card at least twice.
Yeah. So yeah, I think from a replayability point of view, if you play a faction a couple of times, potentially you have seen it all. But then I think it comes the challenge of outplaying your opponents. I would say this is the tricky part of the game. So from an action perspective, it's quite simple. So none of your actions seems big, if you wish. The action is simple. You do a simple card. You may place 2 cubes in the voting bag when you vote.
But they're all fairly straightforward, and they don't really, you don't have to squeeze your brains to actually finish one action. They're all fairly straightforward and easy to follow.
Correct.
I think the strategy behind, it's very hard to set a strategy behind what your opponents are doing, because the game is so interlinked that if, for example, the capitalists decide not to put out another company or 2, then the working class is just piling up because the immigration is high. So then you'll end up with a lot of immigration, a lot of unemployment, and people will start rioting.
Yes, yes, yes.
And if people riot, then the state is in trouble because
strike.
they strike and all of it. So it's all very well interlinked.
Yes. There are a couple of expansions which give you more cards and more events and this kind of stuff. But I think, the game is very interesting for what it is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think it's a game that...
It's a learning curve.
And I think it's a game that everybody should experience in a sense.
Yeah.
At least once.
You learn stuff that you... Oh, what is that market called? IMF?
Oh, the IMF is not market.
IMF?
It's the International Monetary Fund.
Yeah, well, I didn't know what that is.
IMF,
but I learned in this game, so if at least I learned that much, then I'm happy with that.
So yeah, generally the game explains you and introduces you and educates you to a lot of concepts, and that's a cool thing to do, and I would like to see more games to do that basically.
That's what I was just about to say. I would really wish these people publish more games on different themes, because I think they're educational to some extent.
Yes.
I mean, you cannot teach somebody a whole book of something through a game, but you can give them a lot of insight and a lot of information, that's for
Let
sure.
me tell you something that we didn't know. If you had backed the Kickstarter version of the game, you would get another rule. It's a book, basically, not a rule book.
Yet another book?
Yeah, another book, which actually explains all of these concepts from an academic point of view, not from a rule book point of view.
Yeah, like they have people from academia and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
it's like
as consultants. Yeah.
properly researched. I like it's a cool idea. It's a cool concept.
Yeah. And we hope to see more games like that, absolutely, with more educational theme and very well linked theme with gameplay. Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed our choice.
Yeah, that was Hegemony, Lead Your Class to Victory, our game of the month.
See you later.
Bye.